Well, hello everyone. Welcome to What About the Music? Today we're hanging out with Claire Jordan. She's Executive Creative Director at Proof Advertising. Claire, nice to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure to chat and share your story. How did it all begin?
How did all Well, I mean, it started long ago. I was one of those rare people that pretty much knew they wanted to be in advertising since senior year of high school. I took a tour at an ad agency and thought these people look like they're having more fun than regular folks doing their jobs. So I've always loved writing. I have a writing background, and it felt like advertising was a way that I could do what I loved and still make a decent paycheck. So.
You've been at Proof for a bit, so how would you describe your role today at Proof?
Yeah, for the last, I would say 2.5 years, I've been the executive creative director before that, and just been kind of on a long ride with Proof for a while. And right now, I manage our 12, actually now 13-person creative team, and it's a really great team full of people who nobody really does one thing. Everyone has multidisciplinary and vibes and can really get things done. We're a small shop, so I think in a small shop you have to do that kind of thing. So yeah, I think my role here is just making sure that everyone's gifts, because everyone does have a variety and of gifts, making sure those shine and get aligned with the right projects, so that I'm making sure people are really set up to win at every project I put them on. And that's always my goal is, and that's how I see my role, is just making sure these talented folks that I get the pleasure to work with get to work on the projects that suit them the best.
Beautiful, beautiful. And obviously, you mentioned gifts. Obviously, music is a gift, but it's
Absolutely.
also a powerful tool, right? That we have that we can use in a very smart way, creative way, right, to get the most of our campaign. So, I guess like we're here to discuss music, and music is so important in advertising. And one of our big goals is to make it more important in advertising. Usually, at times, it's an afterthought, or it's the last thing that we do in the end when we're in post. So, with this podcast, we're here to remind people of the importance of music, how if we are creative with it, it can really make or break a campaign. So it's just good to start talking about those things. And I guess, what's your personal relationship with music? I think like everyone loves music, right? Either
Absolutely.
if you're a musician or not a musician, but everyone has a relationship with music. So I guess you, like, what is your relationship with music?
Yeah, I would say it's fairly strong. I mean, I know we always joke like don't trust anyone who doesn't say they like says they don't like music, you know. But I have a very musical. I grew up in a very musical household. I would say that I can play several instruments in a mediocre fashion. So I love music. I've played in bands all through my 20s and 30s.
Oh,
And
really? You play an instrument?
yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't want to overpromise because, like I said, so I was in a punk band in my 20s, and you don't have to be very good at music to play in a punk band, right? So I played guitar in that band, and it was a lot of fun, all-girl punk band called Honey Pot.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, and then switched genres a bit here and there, and played bass in a couple bands and keys in another band. So like I said, like if there's a band and they go, hey, we need someone to do this, and I'm like, I'll do it. But so yeah, I think music is one of those things. I write to music. I like to create playlists for certain clients that help me get into the zone for that particular client. I think music is like breathing and eating. It's just one of those things I couldn't live without.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing. And is there like a moment that you realize that like the music could really elevate the work? Like, I mean, we all know the power of music, but sometimes you have to like witness a campaign or something that happens that really like propels the campaign, or like, was there like a specific moment in your career that you said, wow, like look what we did with music, and look what that did to the campaign.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think coming up, I saw it. There would always be those spots, like as like that I was when I was a very impressionable young creative. For some reason, I have a memory of a Dr. Pepper spot where that Meatloaf song, "I would do anything for love, but I wouldn't do that," like was the song, and it like the spot wouldn't have worked without that song, and it made it so it just really hit me like how great it was to find a great song and write an entire concept around it. But so I think it's like as an impressionable creative, I would see these spots that were so uplifted, and it like tripled the creativity of the spot when you pick the right song. And so I think I've always like chase that a bit. I think it's challenging, right? Because I've often worked in boutique shops, like regional shops, where we don't always have, the $2 million to pay, pay a big name artist to,
Mm.
spend 2 million bucks on a single spot or something like that. But I think so that's challenged me in a lot of ways to think about using like, but I also don't think you have to just like default to a $20 stock track for that, right? Like, so that's a big range. There's a huge, beautiful spectrum inside of that range,
Oh
right?
yeah.
That you can find, and from scoring to finding those up and coming bands, and I one some couple stories that come to mind are we have a tourism client that several years ago, when we were coming out of the pandemic, we were looking for a song to really catch people's eye and get people to return to this destination. And there's a band, an Austin band called Black Pumas that no one had really, heard. They weren't that famous yet. We started like their album had just come out, and we were really loving it. And ended up getting one of their track Colors was the song that we were able to use. I mean, 6 months later, they were on the Grammys. And so we felt really lucky finding them at that time, and getting them. And it just made the work. I mean, that spot wouldn't have been anything without that song. And it just made it so beautiful. And I think, fast forward, we weren't able to use them again because they did get so big. But then you have to kind of pivot and be creative in those situations. Okay, so we can't use this band now. Who are we going to use? Who are we going to look for? And a recent campaign that we did like about a year and a half ago, we found this local Austin band called West 22nd. They had just come out of the University of Texas, and had put out an EP, and they were great. I mean, they were awesome. They were so good that we not only used their music as the tracks for every song in the or every spot in the campaign, we also featured them on camera as talent as well, because they were awesome. They were so great to watch, and it just that synergy of the on-screen talent and the music for the campaign just made it perfect in my eyes. So
Yeah.
yeah, those spots made it so the music made those spots for me. That's my most proud thing about that campaign.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you said it's all timing also. And so like again, like you really propelled the campaign, but also the artist's career. And so you mentioned like there's like the $2 million budget, and then there's also like you have $20 for a stock track. There's like a huge middle ground of like possibilities with independent artists that's so amazing. And um and nowadays like you want to work with the Black Pumas, like it'll be like
Cost
higher in
you.
the spectrum, but it's all
Yeah.
timing, right? So
Yeah.
that's something that a brand has the opportunity to really get involved, like help artists expand their careers while also like doing amazing creative. And I think consumers and fans like these days, like they know what sort of like they can tell, like they have like that you know way of telling if something contributes to culture or not, if something like they just know, they feel it. And so like a lot of times when we go with authentic music made by a real human being, like you can transmit that, right?
Sure.
And so yeah, I mean that's an amazing case study for that. How I'm just curious, like obviously every creative has their own process with music. Like once you have a client, like how do you start, like how early is music
Hmm.
part of the process, and what's your process, I guess?
Well, it's funny, like sometimes I feel like I will come up with something like an idea, a concept for a campaign or spot. Um, and then it's really hard for me not to think like to just do the exercise of going, okay, um if I could pick any song, what would it be, And I love especially for when we do pitches, when because like pitches are kind of like, free for alls, like there's no real budget in a pitch, right? So you can do whatever you want. So I think sometimes in those scenarios I will start with a song that really speaks to the strategy. And it get in that gets me really pumped, and it presents really well in a room. And so every now and then I'll have that song come first and try to really think. But then of course that'll be like I'll be thinking of songs that are established and maybe not doable within our budget or whatever. But I think there's a lot to a song that there's a vibe that you can create. You know what I mean? In a song, like you might choose. a 1980s rock love, romantic rock ballad, right? And yeah, I can't afford that particular one, but there are some the bones to that type of music. There are building blocks to that type of music that we feel even if we hear a different song that isn't that famous song that give us that same emotion. And so I think when you're working with talented music professionals, they can read through all of that and they can help you like create that kind of thing. So it's fun to start with that inspiration that may or may not be the song you end up with, but it's what informs the idea and it informs, the music that you chase throughout the process.
Yeah, and that usually becomes like your North Star, I guess, at the beginning. And I've seen cases where you have like your music reference track, and a lot of
Yeah.
times it's a track that you cannot afford, and so you're trying to sell that in, but as you try to sell that in, you work on a plan B or a plan C just in
Yeah.
case. And that's when you start getting into demo love, and then right, and so like this like
Yeah. I mean, we're
and
actually
then
going through that right now with this. We have this client that we did a great spot, and the concept of the spot is how in love this girl is with her dog. And so it's basically a love story between a girl and her dog instead of the traditional girl and her boyfriend. And so we recreated the scene from Ghost with this girl and her dog.
Hmm.
And like it's like, I mean, it's very much like an 80s love ballad like moment, and we definitely our demo was definitely I think it was maybe like Love Lift Us Up, where we like, something like that. It was like some popular 80s song that obviously we're not going to use, and maybe not even use anything that sounds remotely like that, but it's going to have that like same feeling that you walk away with emotion to it, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, and then exactly. And then but then what sometimes happens is that like, in a way like everything else that you present feels short of
Yeah,
that track,
that's the trick. Yeah.
right? And so it's just interesting, the whole dynamic. It's like the track that you hear for the first time that just works well. That's
Hmm.
sort of like what your brain tells you, okay, this is the one, and then everything else is just like tough to beat, right? That
It's
happens a
yeah.
lot of times, right?
Yeah, that's the tricky bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's something that we have to work with. And there's so many, in advertising, there's like so many decision makers, so many cooks in the kitchen a lot of times. And you have a production team, you have a creative team, you have the brand, right? And so everyone has a say in music sometimes. So how do you deal with that decision making process when there's so many people to go through? What is sort of like your process there?
I mean, I think we're lucky in that we have a lot of clients that really trust us. Some are pickier than others about music, and that can be hard, right? Like, I mean, it's music is so subjective, and I think we try to get really aligned internally so that we aren't presenting too many options and we're really making sure that we can defend our choices. And then we take it to the client and just really hope that they trust us. And so hopefully we're building trust so that when we have the music conversation, they're nodding along and they're understanding why we've made the choices that we've made. Um, every now and then that doesn't work and they still run us through the ringer and it feels like we're exhausting every option, but yeah, it's tricky. No, it's you definitely raise a good point that in a world as subjective as advertising, music could be arguably the most subjective because everyone loves music and they have an opinion, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And a lot of times like you're working on campaigns, and you start off with this music brief and you have this idea. And then you start going through options. You have partners that help you along the way, and you present options, and then you go a certain route. And then you're so convinced that that route is the one, and then you exhaust all options within that route. And so, but a lot of times, like all to go through um, a specific lane that just doesn't work, and then so you have to go back to square one and go another lane, right? So, like,
Yeah.
I feel that it's like it's what you're saying. Like, we have to be resourceful and always keep exploring different options, just so that we can be prepared whenever you exhaust that lane, right? You can
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
go back. And that's the beauty of working with artists and providing customizations and doing original composition, that you can really, basically like be ahead of those things.
Yeah.
And I feel that uh, there are ways to customize a track, really, even if it is from an independent artist, to really say, hey, like if there's this specific instrumentation that's colliding with the VO, like it's very simple to go ahead and remove that instrumentation or
Yeah.
add to it or remove. So it's there's sky's the limit. There's no flexibility, and that's the beauty of music. But I feel that sometimes, like, I don't know what you think about this, but a lot of times when people want to license a track of an independent artist or an established artist, they don't think that that's possible. They think that
Yeah.
the flexibility isn't there.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's intimidating. I think, it's like you can go through times where you get your heart set on a track and you kind of feel burned because the numbers come back and it's just it makes you go, wow, how does anyone ever afford to get a recognizable song or, a real song from a real artist? But I think you just, like you said, find the right partner who works with you and has those connections and knows those artists that can, and, it's, I think, you trying to keep yourself creatively flexible to know that there could be a second option that is a really good option, and maybe like the demo love that you talked about, you just have to like
Yeah.
keep your mind open, right? Because there might be a really good solution out there, um, that you just need to lay ears
Ex
on.
exactly, exactly. And so I think it's an interesting thing you mentioned because on one hand, as a creative, right, you have to have resources and partners that you can rely on. But sometimes it's also like a matter of being open to trying new things, right? And it's like
Yeah,
that like willingness to like always innovate and explore like new things that are around the corner. And I think it's that mindset that can really, lead you to new things. Like I don't think I'd had my first shot in the advertising industry if it wasn't for, that producer that had faith in me because I entered the advertising world and I didn't know anyone. I was just in the music industry.
oh yeah,
And so I went to South by Southwest. I met a producer from Leo Burnett. And he was loving everything we did. He's like, "Hey, why don't you come to Chicago? Come to our office. We'll show you around. You can meet my team and you can present to us." But it's that willingness to try something new that
yeah,
can they right. So I think it's like a balance of like if you have something that works, stick with it, but also keep trying the things, right?
yeah. And just it's always changing. I mean, just like everything in advertising and everything in all of our world is changing all the time. Music is constantly shifting and changing and evolving, and you know, just making sure you're not too stuck in your ways is probably the way to be,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
So just keep
exactly.
up.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, like, there's all types of campaigns. There's campaigns that have a lot of VO on it. There's campaigns that don't have a lot of VO on it, where music plays a very big role. And there's, at times like music has like a more of a background role, and because of that, it might not have the most prominent role. It just gets something you do at the end, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious, have you had an instance where like you really pushed your team or your client to really prioritize music where it wasn't really a priority and you had to like put your fist down and say, "Hey guys, there's a big opportunity, let's do this," or
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's funny that you say that because I feel like that's happening right now. I'm just lately I feel like I don't know if it's um how like consumers have just been so exposed to so many of the same spots. I feel like for a long run there was just this anthem spot notion of like, okay, and because it's harder to capture talent talking. It's harder to find a really great music track than just to like, have a piece of stock with a voiceover saying some, you know poetic words and some b-roll of visuals. Like I feel like for so long this idea of like an anthem TV spot, I mean, it started ages ago and we still haven't shaken it because it does create some efficiencies, but I'm so tired of it, and I think that consumers are too. I think, you know thoughtful dialogue or thoughtful music, or like I feel like that's what consumers are a bit more hungry for. It's what I'm hungry for, so I just assume as, if I'm
yeah.
hungry for it, someone else will be too. So I think right now I'm in that space where I'm like, hey guys, we don't need to have a voiceover talking the whole time. Like we don't need that. Like let's if we tell the right story and we pick the right song, that's gonna do our work, and it's gonna, it's gonna stand out in its uniqueness in that way.
Yeah, like more intentionality behind it and
Yeah.
really yeah, I mean, and I think there's just so many possibilities and when it comes to music, and it's just taking the time to not just go the easy route. Uh
Yeah. I mean, it
and
takes it takes
yeah,
creativity, right? Yeah.
takes your yeah, and but also like dedicating time to it, and a little bit of researching. Sometimes you don't need to that much because you find the gold mine, right?
Yeah.
You find this like up and coming band in Austin, Texas that's just
I
amazing, and
know.
you
And
it
there and
right.
I was like, this whole EP is perfect for our campaign. Yeah.
Yeah. So 100%, 100%. And kind of like looking ahead, like I mean, obviously there's AI now, of course, and I believe that that definitely affects everything. Even if you're not using generative AI music, it does affect our process behind it, and so like we a lot of times like we go to AI for effectiveness and for
Yeah.
tools, right, for speed and all these things, and I'm sure music is a little bit of part of that, like where it can help you dissect a brief or create a brief or
Yeah.
even but a lot of times I feel that I've already seen people creating reference tracks with AI.
Yeah.
Um, so we're eventually heading that direction. What do you think is sort of like something that creatives should be aware of as for the next couple of years as we go along, especially with music?
It's interesting. I mean, I would imagine that the same uh, theories apply to music that I've seen being applied to AI in use in imagery and AI use in writing and AI use in content creation, which is that, um, people are pretty hungry for things that look raw and real. And like I think for me, I've been lately interpreting polish is the presence of AI, and it's like and it's like I think you can really stands out like content created, that looks like branded content, looks like it's shot on a really high resolution camera, with a really slick VO. That just doesn't play well, in like in a social space, and like honestly, all consumers, the playground right now is social. We all know that, and so it's like if it doesn't play there, it doesn't play at all, in my opinion. So it's like you got to win that space first. And so I think with music, it's like we've been hearing stock tracks for so long. And I mean, and I don't, and I think AI, we're starting to hear AI tracks. It's like the human brain is going to start when you can only hear with something so many times before you're going to be hungry for something realer and rawer. And AI will chase that. And so I just actually saw something recently that was like an interesting thought to me. It was like, because we'll no longer be able to tell like what's AI and not what's not AI, I think the hard work isn't done when you press record on your like in the studio, or you press record on your camera on set. It's like all the work you do leading up to that is where you're going to make your difference, right? It's all the thinking about the layers of that music, or the thinking about the way that music plays into your spot, or the way, and I think it's gonna, I think about that also from like an idea space, like if we could make this ad with AI, and we could create it entirely with AI, like okay, that's fine, but like what's the 2 weeks leading up to that, or the 2 months leading up to that? What is the creative thinking that you're doing to before you press go? Does that make sense?
Total sense, total sense. And I just think that, you know, when I think of AI, a lot of times specifically like Gen AI, like I think of like it's just average, right? And so like you're not gonna really stand out. Like and I think if you use AI solely to create art or creativity, um, it's gonna be very average. Like it's
Yeah.
not meant to be meaningful, right? In my opinion, but
Yeah.
I do think it's like if you want to have average content, go for it, and it's going to be average. It's not going to be bad, but it's not going to be good either. It's not going to break through. But I just think that like that's why like humans have that spark,
Yeah.
and and I think that that applies to music as well, um,
I totally
and
agree.
yeah.
Yeah. I think too, it's one thing that I get really excited about with AI, and then I think this is very true for music, very true for content creation as well, is it's like like I think of myself like I had a lot of ideas. I wrote a lot of songs in my 20s that I thought were the best songs,
Hmm.
but I didn't have the skill set to bring them to life the way that my brain wanted them to. And like I think about like, kids sitting in a room able to create like to have that idea to write that song and then AI tools let you bring it to life in a way you would have needed recording studio, you would have needed a five-piece band. And look, I love live music, so I don't ever want IA to replace that. But I do think there's something beautiful about being able to bring ideas to life for people to who get inspired and want to be creative but feel limited by their own skill set. I mean, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, no, it's a great tool. It's a great tool. But again, it starts off with the idea, and like we should
Yeah.
control the idea, right? Like we should control the idea behind it.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mostly imagine little 17-year-olds in their bedrooms wanting to make music and
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that for sure. And now like there's, people are gonna be able to express themselves and do all kinds of things, which is great.
Yeah,
But for brands and for agencies, it's gonna be interesting. And obviously there's like a legal component, for
sure.
sure. And
Yeah,
that's gonna get ironed out. But also it's like where there's like values, brand values, like where do you stand and
yeah,
which path do you want to go along, right? So
yeah.
but it's definitely interesting. I personally like to, side with authenticity and obviously leverage AI tools, but have the human control, the creative direction,
Totally. I
control
mean,
the
it's just yeah,
ideas
yeah.
and really guide it and instead of just going with the easy way out, taking the easy way out and just writing a prompt and hey, create a song for me with X, Y, and Z. And because that
Yeah.
is going to be possible. That is going to
Yeah.
be possible.
Well, that's true. I mean, there's something interesting about the thought of like the amount of time it takes you to create something is probably the amount of time it will last in the world, right? So, like if it takes you 30 seconds to type a prompt and you create a song, that song is probably gonna matter for about that amount of time, right?
Exactly, exactly. And there's something about honing in. It's like when you're doing copy, like you want to make sure that you take time to figure out, okay, what words am I going to use, right?
Yeah.
What goes well together? And even if you have something that you like, you can still take time to tweak it, to perfect it, to hone it in. And maybe
Yeah.
you go to another level. But you
Yeah.
won't know that unless you take the time.
Right.
And that same thing happens with music. Like you're ideating, you come up with this sound, and then you have to just it's the notion of tinkering. Like we need
Totally.
to
Yeah.
tinker. And I
Yeah.
think tinkering is underrated these days.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to just get things out of the door quick. We have this cool idea, let's present it quick. Okay, client approved. Okay, let's go. On
Yeah.
to the next. Instead, like there's something about tinkering that is underrated these days. But
Yeah.
it's what gets people to pay attention, I think, because like once you have something that's like meaningful, even if it takes a while, I think you can reap the rewards from it.
Yeah. I mean, because I think AI tools are becoming table stakes, so then it becomes who has the brain to do what with them, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's cool. I mean, and nothing will ever replace a phenomenal guitar player. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
You know?
So yeah, I mean it's hard to say that we're in 2026 because I feel like time has passed so quickly.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
for the remainder of the year, I guess what direction would you like music and advertising to take? Like what kind of things would you like to see? Uh, and on that note, like what advice would you give to other creatives in the ad world about uh how to think about music and advertising, I guess.
I don't know. It's interesting. I was thinking about like, I just had this thought the other day. I'd be curious to see what you think about is like, you know, I sometimes, and maybe this is me just being old, but I sometimes get sad for like how hard I feel like it can be for up and coming bands to like, or performers or musicians or all those things to like break through or something like that. And it makes me wonder like could like advertising like the kind of advertising I do where we can't afford a super famous track. Like, could that be the way that if we just like commit ourselves to finding real musicians that are really trying to make it in the world and like, I mean, that could be the platform that in 1980 that was the radio and like maybe now it's advertising, you know?
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think brands and really like ad agencies on behalf of brands
Yeah.
are really record labels. If you think about it,
Yeah, that's a cool thought.
and and honestly, uh, uh, what's the line with great power comes great
Your
responsibility? That's
responsibility.
the
Yeah,
Spider-Man thing. So like, I think that brands have so much influence because
totally.
people pay attention to what they have to say. And so they can do more for an artist than Spotify ever could.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And even more than these record labels can do. So it's just honing in on that concept, and once you understand that, it's like, oh, I can really do that. Can I really do that? Okay, so and then you can get creative, and
Absolutely.
and you
Yeah.
start like asking yourself, how can I really connect with these artists? How can I discover them? And you start realizing that there's a lot of tools at your
Yeah.
disposal. So that's something that we're super passionate about, just connecting, brands with artists. So like, I'm happy you say that, and um, every brand, in my opinion, is a record label. At least they have the potential to be one if they really want to. And there's been success stories of that, of brands that really get that are very music forward. Uh, but there's the majority of them, are not doing enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Haven't figured it out yet. Yeah.
and they're still spending loads of money, so it's not a money issue.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just a willingness and just opening your eyes type of thing.
Yeah, like a frame of mind issue. No, I think you're
Frame of
right.
mind.
It's fun to think of like, every when you use a track on a 30-second TV spot, right? And it has a real live up and coming band on it. It's cool to think of, like you said, like it's cool to think of that media plan isn't just behind that 30-second commercial. That media plan is behind that band as well, right? And so in that way, it definitely that brand and that musician, their destinies are a bit intertwined in that way.
Oh yeah.
And I've always believed like the more people that succeed if you succeed, like the more that just triples the your opportunity, you know?
It's like the artist becomes part of your media plan. Then
Yeah.
they'll get excited. Then they'll share it on their socials,
Yeah.
and maybe they'll call you out on their next live show.
Yeah.
Uh, so you never know what can happen, right?
So
And
treat them
so
right. Got to treat your artists right though.
exactly, exactly. So it's like it's a ripple effect, really.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go with a piece of stock track, or you go with a production library track, it might end there.
Yeah.
So that's the effect of working with like authentic artists, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, no, so it's awesome. And yeah, I mean, Claire, this is great. Like, I'd love to have conversations with you about this because I'm passionate. I can tell you're passionate about it too. And I think people will really, it's going to be good for people to hear about, all these things. And hey, maybe a brand hears this and then it opens their eyes a little bit, and they can
Absolutely.
tinker and tinker with
Yeah,
this idea.
exactly. Bring some more tinkering to advertising, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I love it.
Um, yeah, Claire. So I'm curious, like, what kind of music do you, in your free time, what kind of music do you listen to? What is something that's on your playlist today that you're liking?
Yeah. I'll just tell you what I've been listening to. So I have a heart for female rock bands. It's just maybe because I was in one. Like I don't know. I love them. So and I thought they were new because I just heard a song on the radio, but they're not. I saw that they were had been around for a decade at least. But I think they're a British band called Wolf Alice that I was listening to. I also there's a band I think they're also from England. I'm not totally sure, but called The Last Dinner Party. I'm a big Wet Leg fan. These are all I'm like realizing these are all European
Love
bands.
it.
Um, I mean, Haim, like they're a really awesome female American rock band that I really like. So, I like the lady rockers.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. No, I mean those some great bands, and yeah, I mean I always like to ask like different creatives what they're listening to, what they're vibing to. So I love
Yeah.
the vibe that you have going on right now.
Yeah.
Uh
Check them out. If you guys haven't heard them, you should listen. They're fun.
No, this has been great, Claire. I mean, thank you so much for a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. So everyone, Claire Jordan here. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.